network services for VoIP deployment. Now we do require, when we deploy the IPPBX or the VoIP phone system and a network for the production, we do require the network services that help us to ease the deployment. Now in this video, I'll try to show you the network services that we really require to make a smooth deployment of a VoIP PBX and our production environment. Let's see. The common network services that we require for IP telephony deployments are a DHCP server. It's a dynamic host control protocol where we deploy the phones and all those of the phones get the IP addresses from DHCP server in order to communicate with the IPPBX. Then of course we do need the NTP network time protocol. All the phones that we are deploying should have a correct timing on it. TFTP or the FTP is the optional, or in case if we are doing the auto provisioning for the phones. Let's say you have 100 plus phones or 50-60 phones and you like to give them the zero touch provisioning, then you do need the TFTP or the FTP services or the server where you can upload all the XML configurations, the contact directories, logos, images for all the phones that you like to deploy. And I will show you how you can do that in the later videos. And then of course the DNS. This DNS, in case if you are using for disaster recovery or the high availability, then the DNS also helps you to configure a DNS host name instead of using the IP address. Now the DHCP service that we use is a dynamic host control protocol, of course, and you need to define the DHCP range for the pool of endpoint phones. So you should define, let's say you have 254 host name. Then you define a range for IP phones, and you should have a static range as well. So your IPPBX or the phone server, the gateways and the SBC, the session border controller, IP addresses should be in static range. It should not be the part of a DHCP. Otherwise, the DHCP, each time when you boot the device, it tried to look or try to update the DHCP because each device is having the least time. So just hands-on. We'll use the DHCP for the phones that we are deploying, and we'll keep the static IP addresses for IPPBX and gateways and the SBCs, etc., or any VoIP device that we use in our network other than the phones. The DHCP option can be used to auto-assign the following setting to the IP phones. Now, one of the advantages of using the DHCP and your phone network is that you can automate some of the features. For example, the NTP server address that you can assign using the DHCP options to your phones, the TFTP and the FTP server address as well. So as soon as the phone boots, it get the IP address, and the next using the DHCP option like 120 or 150 or 66, it will get the TFTP or the FTP address where it can download its firmware, its config files, etc. And similarly the DNS. So it will also get its domain name where it can resolve any IP address against any domain.